There are probably two key takeaways for Carolina Panthers fans with the 2022 season. Number one is that the Matt Rhule, spelled F-O-O-L, era ended in the middle of the season. Mercifully, thankfully, what the hell took so long? Should have happened after the end of the 2021 season. But Panthers fans, at least if nothing else, could rejoice about that. And then probably number two is that piece of, now as you look back how everything has played out, and it played out in the offseason, played out with the draft, well, if Matt Rhule was going to get fired, then kind of wish the team would have lost more games so they didn't have to give up as much as they did to move up to number one in the draft to get the quarterback that they wanted. But hey, you can't win them all, right? But Matt Rhule era is gone. It's over. It's done. And Panthers fans should be very happy about that. And the guy to replace him is Frank Reich, former NFL quarterback, former NFL head coach, spent several years with the Colts, had some success there. I'm not going to oversell it, but certainly better choice of a head coach than Matt Rhule, especially when you're talking about a team that was going to go into this offseason looking to get a young quarterback by hook or by crook. Now, this was a team that did put in some work in the offseason in free agency, spent some money, threw it around on offense, signed Miles Sanders to be their primary running back, brought in DJ Chark and Adam Thielen to that receiving group, added Hayden Hurst as the tight end. God, I can't speak. It's too late. Been doing too many of these today. And then defensively signed guys like Justin McCray and Von Bell and Shai Tuttle. So this is a team that did spend some money in the offseason, which they knew they needed to because they were really bad. But obviously the most important thing of this offseason for the Panthers was the draft, and in particular what they did in round one, trading up from 9-1 to get to Chicago's first overall pick so they could have their choice at quarterback. And it came at a price, right? They had to give up DJ Moore. You hate to give up, if you're the Panthers, DJ Moore when you're bringing in a young quarterback, because you'd like to have DJ Moore around for said young quarterback, but getting the quarterback that you want is more important than anything else. So they had to do it. They had to do it. Ryan Poles laid down the gauntlet, said that's the price, and forced the Panthers to meet it because the Bears had more leverage. Well done by Poles in that particular case. But they had to give up a second rounder in 2023, a first rounder next year, a second rounder in 2025, along with DJ Moore. It's a pretty steep price. Pretty steep price to move up 8 slots. And what's even more interesting about that is they did it to take a quarterback that falls well outside of the kind of physical skill and talent size prototypes for the position. And you could say, well, Bryce Young is still really good. He may be. However, when you're talking about picking quarterbacks, number one overall, we've seen 2 recent examples of quarterbacks that were drafted that didn't fall into kind of the more prototype-like size, arm strength type of profile. And that was Baker Mayfield, and that was Kyler Murray. And that's the type of territory you're in here. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts. I said it a few years back with John Dorsey when he just had to take Baker Mayfield at 1. I thought it was the wrong decision. I said, you better fucking be right, because you're taking a 6-foot quarterback with an okay arm, number 1, you better hope he's special. Because if not, you're going to live to regret it. And the Panthers, especially with the price that they have invested into being able to get Bryce Young, they better hope to God he's that dude. Because if he's not, this is going to look really, really bad and will have sent the Panthers organization back several years. In terms of this team, some of the things I like, Brian Burns. Now, I would certainly personally say, the Panthers are kind of stupid for not trading him last year. Apparently, the Rams had offered 2 future first-round picks for Brian Burns. You have to fucking take that deal. It was really dumb that they didn't. And now there's some talk about potential, contract problems. But if Brian Burns is there, Brian Burns is a stud. And he had 12.5 sacks last season. This is the guy you build your defense around in Carolina. And then I look at their special teams units. And you say, that's a weird strength. It's important, right? It is a part of the game. And you think of Pinheiro. They brought him back. He hit 94% of his field goals last year and only missed, I think, 2 extra points. Johnny Hekker is one of the best punters in the business and has been for a while. So when you're talking about, you need that punt that can change field position, can pin an opponent deep, Johnny Hekker can do that. When you want consistency in your field goal game, Pinheiro can bring that to you. He certainly did in 2022, so the Panthers will have an advantage over a number of teams they face in terms of their special teams. And I look at this team and their running game. Last year, they ran the ball well. Now you bring in Miles Sanders. Him and Chuba Hubbard should be a solid 1-2 combination. Plus, whatever Bryce Young's going to be able to bring you in the running game. You didn't really have it to that degree with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold last year. So, the cover's not entirely bare here in Carolina. They originally had the 9th pick in this year's draft, so they weren't the worst team in the league. And when you talk about the situation that you're bringing a young quarterback into, to work with Frank Reich, have that running game, so it's not the worst possible scenario to bring a young man into. Now, here's where it gets rough, right? When you talk about Bryce Young, got to be able to protect him, and that offensive line to me is questionable. They certainly look suspect at times in the preseason, and Nicky Ekwonu has looked really bad. To me, that's a real concern, especially when you're talking about he could be the guy that's protecting Bryce Young's blind side. Not a great thing there. And they've got to play better as an offensive line unit. I look at their defense. Like, this is a team that invested all of their picks in the 2020 draft, along with a top 8 pick in J.C. Horn in 2021 on the defense. And that defense isn't very good. And that was with a Matt Rhule as the coach and then Steve Wilks as the interim. So a couple of defensive guys in that defense kind of meh. So yeah, I have questions about that unit and how they're going to get much better. And even when you look at some of the guys they brought in, like Von Bell will be an upgrade at safety, sure, but not a lot of help brought in, really. So that's going to be a concern. And then obviously the biggest question, the biggest uncertainty, the biggest curiosity, the biggest intrigue for this team this year is Bryce Young. Because there's not just the pressure of him being the quarterback taken high, him being the face of the franchise. He's the face of the franchise that the franchise invested a lot to be able to even take him to make him the face of the franchise. And, it feels kind of lazy to say, man, you look at him, he just doesn't look very big. And it leaves you some pause and some concern. But it's kind of a fair question. It wasn't just that he's 5'10"-ish. Is that he was barely ticking over 200 pounds, and you worry about him being able to hold up in a 17-game NFL regular season, especially behind that offensive line. Especially for a guy that doesn't have special arm talent. It'd be one thing if he was 5'10", but he had a howitzer for an arm, but he doesn't. He has an adequate arm, but he doesn't have a special arm. He does not have special arm talent. So, his mobility, his ability to improvise, some of the poise that he plays with at times in the pocket could serve him well even as a young quarterback. But yeah, I don't know. Could be rough at times this year. When I look at the schedule for the Panthers, I look at weeks 1 and 2. You want to make a statement early on, show that you can go and actually contend in this division, then handle business against the divisional opponents first. You go to Atlanta in week 1 and host New Orleans in week 2. That's a place where you can make a statement. Weeks 8 through 10. They host Houston, they host Indianapolis, so a chance to see Bryce Young face off against C.J. Stroud, face off against Anthony Richardson. Then week 10, go to Chicago, get to see him face off against Justin Fields. And, two teams that are tied together right now. Who's better, Bryce Young, Justin Fields? Bears fans want the Panthers to suck, so that way the Panthers draft pick in 2024 is higher. Lots of intrigue there. And then weeks 13 through 15, at Tampa, at New Orleans, hosting Atlanta. I think the Panthers, it wouldn't surprise me if they did find a way to win this division. Because like I said, these teams could end up bunching pretty closely together because I don't know that one clearly separates from the other. But I can't go that far. I think 7-9 and third in the division would be okay this year, especially if Bryce Young had a solid rookie year. And that's all that matters. If Bryce Young is, but the defense plays really well, and they run the ball really well, and they win 9 games, they win this division, but Bryce Young is, and you're looking questionable, then everything is stupid in Carolina. They win 6 or 7 games, but Bryce Young looks impressive, but there are other flaws in the team. You can fix those other flaws. You need him to be that dude. That's all that matters this year. That's the aim of the game, the number one goal of the program, period.